Grandma, do you remember me? The room, once filled with laughter and warmth, fell silent. Margaret's fork hovered midair, her fingers trembling slightly as she looked at the little girl before her. There was something familiar in those eyes, something she should know, something she should remember. But the name was gone. Emily's tiny hands curled around Margaret's, squeezing tight as if the touch alone could pull her back. Grandma, it's me, Emily. Still, nothing. The silence stretched, heavy as stone. Across the table, her daughter's smile faltered. Her husband's grip on her hand tightened. Margaret saw it in their eyes, the quiet, heartbreaking realization. This wasn't the first time, and it wouldn't be the last. Alzheimer's doesn't take everything at once. It steals you bit by bit, first the little things. A misplaced key, a forgotten appointment, then the important things. A wedding anniversary, the face of a friend. And finally, it takes the most precious pieces, your children, your grandchildren, your very sense of self, until you are a stranger in your own life. But what if you could stop it? What if something as simple as the food you eat could protect your mind, keep your memories intact, and help you hold onto the life you love? At Elderly Wisdom Story, we believe memories should never fade. If you agree, hit the subscribe button, because what I'm about to share could change everything. Time is a quiet thief. It doesn't announce itself with loud warnings or sudden alarms. It moves subtly, silently, stealing the smallest things first, so small, in fact, that you barely notice. A misplaced key, a forgotten appointment, a name that lingers just out of reach. But then, those small lapses start happening more often. You struggle to recall familiar faces, conversations slip through your fingers like water, and suddenly you're standing in front of a loved one, searching their eyes, knowing that you should know them, but nothing. It's terrifying, isn't it? The idea that one day you might wake up and find that parts of your life, your memories, your identity are no longer yours. But the truth is, this isn't something that happens overnight. It's not a switch that flips from clarity to confusion. It's a slow fade, a gradual unraveling that begins long before the symptoms become obvious. Inside your brain, an invisible battle is taking place. Every single day, millions of neurons, the tiny messengers that carry your thoughts, memories, and emotions, are disappearing. Some of them naturally as part of aging. But for many, the loss is happening faster than it should. Inflammation creeps in like a slow-burning fire, damaging the delicate web of connections that make up your mind. Blood sugar fluctuations silently starve brain cells of the energy they need to survive, and the foods you eat, without you even realizing it, could be accelerating this decline, making the difference between a sharp, active mind and one that slowly slips into darkness. And yet, no one warns you. Doctors talk about heart disease, about diabetes, about arthritis. But who tells you that your brain is dying? Who tells you that what's on your plate today could determine whether you'll still recognize your own reflection years from now? No one. But here's something you need to know: decline is not inevitable. Yes, time is relentless, and yes, aging brings challenges. But just as the wrong foods can destroy your brain, the right ones can save it. Science has proven that certain nutrients, simple, natural, and easily available, have the power to slow cognitive decline, reduce inflammation, and keep your brain sharp for years to come. And some of the most powerful, memory-saving foods, they're closer than you think. Maybe even in your kitchen right now. Because sometimes the smallest choices, the ones you make every day without a second thought, hold the power to shape your future. And what I'm about to share with you could be the key to protecting everything that makes you you. Margaret had always been sharp. She was the type of woman who never needed a grocery list, who remembered birthdays without a calendar, who could recall conversations from years ago as if they had just happened yesterday. But lately, things had started to slip. It began with the little things, where she had left her keys, what she had walked into a room to get. Then it was names. The neighbor she had known for decades, the one she chatted with every morning on her walk, suddenly became what's his name. It frustrated her, but she brushed it off. Just aging, she told herself. Happens to everyone. Then came the day she forgot Emily. Her granddaughter had always been the light of her life. The giggles, the bedtime stories, the little hands reaching for hers. But that afternoon, as Emily ran toward her, arms outstretched, something inside Margaret froze. She knew she should know her. She could feel the love, but the name was gone. Panic surged through her. This wasn't just forgetfulness. This was something worse. The doctor's voice was calm but firm. Margaret, your memory loss is not just aging. It's the beginning of cognitive decline. If you don't take action now, things will only get worse. Alzheimer's. Dementia. Words she had only heard about in passing now loomed over her like a storm cloud. She thought of her mother, who had spent her final years staring blankly at old photographs, unable to recognize the people in them. Margaret felt a chill run through her. No, that will not be me. She needed a plan. Her doctor gave her one. Eat more walnuts, he said. They're like fuel for your brain. It sounded too simple. Could something as ordinary as a handful of walnuts really help? But Margaret had nothing to lose. Every morning she made it a habit, 7 walnuts a day, nothing more, nothing less. At first, she didn't notice anything. But after a few weeks, something shifted. Words came to her more easily. Conversations felt smoother. And one day, as Emily climbed into her lap and looked up at her expectantly, Margaret smiled. "Emily," she said, "tell me about your day." The name came effortlessly. No hesitation. No panic. Her doctor wasn't surprised. He explained that walnuts were packed with omega-3 fatty acids, the very nutrients that help slow brain aging and reduce the inflammation that leads to memory loss. A study from UCLA had found that seniors who ate walnuts daily performed 15% better on memory tests. 15%. Enough to make a difference. Enough to bring back the names, the stories, the moments that mattered. For the first time in months, Margaret felt hope. But just as her mind was growing stronger, something else was failing. It was subtle at first. A little more breathlessness when climbing the stairs. A tightness in her chest after carrying groceries. Then the doctor's words confirmed what she feared. Your cholesterol is too high. If you don't make a change, your heart is at risk. Margaret had always thought of heart disease as something that happened to other people. She had always been careful. But now her heart, the very thing that kept her alive, was struggling. This time, the doctor's advice was different. Try pistachios. Just a handful a day. She almost laughed. Could something so small really make a difference? But she had learned her lesson with walnuts. Sometimes the smallest habits have the greatest impact. So she made the switch. Every afternoon, instead of reaching for cookies, she reached for pistachios. She took her time, cracking them open one by one, savoring them instead of mindlessly eating. Weeks passed. Then months. At her next checkup, the numbers told a new story. Her cholesterol had dropped. Her blood pressure had stabilized. She felt lighter, more energetic. Stronger. Her doctor smiled. Keep doing what you're doing. But just as she was celebrating one victory, another battle began. One morning, Margaret slipped. Not a hard fall, just a quick misstep on the stairs. But the pain that shot through her hip was unlike anything she had felt before. When she went to the doctor, she heard the words she had been dreading. Margaret, your bones are thinning. If you don't do something now, even a minor fall could be dangerous. She thought about her friend Carol, who had fractured her hip last year and never fully recovered. She thought about the fear, how easily independence could be taken away. This time, the doctor's advice was simple. Eat almonds. They're packed with magnesium and calcium, exactly what your bones need. Margaret didn't question it. Every morning, alongside her walnuts, she added a small handful of almonds. She did it religiously, not expecting immediate results, but trusting the process. 3 months later, something changed. She felt steadier. The stiffness in her legs eased. Walking down the stairs didn't feel like a risk anymore. At her next scan, the doctor nodded in approval. Your bones are getting stronger. Margaret exhaled, feeling the weight of relief settle over her. She wasn't just surviving. She was fighting back. Because aging doesn't have to mean losing yourself, your memories, your strength, your independence. Sometimes the most powerful changes don't come from grand gestures, but from the smallest habits. A handful of walnuts. A handful of pistachios. A handful of almonds. 3 simple choices that helped Margaret reclaim her life. And maybe, just maybe, they could do the same for you. Margaret had done everything right, or so she thought. She had fought for her memory, strengthened her heart, fortified her bones. She felt in control again, like she had taken back the years that time had tried to steal. But what she didn't realize was that something so small, so seemingly harmless, was still working against her. It started with a dull ache in her lower back, the kind of pain that comes and goes, the kind you ignore because life is busy, and there are always more important things to worry about. But the pain didn't go away. It lingered, sharp and unrelenting, turning everyday moments. Bending down to tie her shoe, standing at the sink to wash dishes, into small battles. Then one night it became unbearable, a stabbing pain, a desperate gasp for breath, the crushing weight of something inside her body betraying her. The hospital room was cold. The clock ticked in slow, rhythmic beats. And then the doctor spoke. "Margaret, you have kidney stones." The words hit her like a slap. Kidney stones? How? She drank water. She avoided processed foods. She had done everything right. But then the doctor asked a simple question. "Do you eat cashews often?" She nodded slowly, confused. "Yes, every day." "Aren't they good for you?" He sighed. "They can be, but cashews are high in oxalates. In large amounts, they contribute to kidney stones, especially in people over 60. You've been unknowingly making it worse." Margaret felt her stomach drop. The creamy, satisfying nuts she had snacked on every afternoon, the ones she thought were a healthy choice, had been quietly working against her. She had been feeding the problem without even knowing it. And that wasn't the only mistake she had been making. She had always prided herself on eating clean. No junk food, no fast food. But she did have a habit, something she had never thought twice about. Her little evening indulgence. A handful of macadamia nuts, rich and buttery, a treat she looked forward to at the end of the day. They were natural, they were healthy, at least, that's what she believed. But then she stepped on the scale. 15 pounds. That's how much she had gained in 6 months. It didn't make sense. She wasn't eating more. If anything, she had been more careful than ever. But when she mentioned her weight gain to her doctor, his question made her stomach twist. "Do you eat macadamia nuts?" She hesitated. "Yes, but they're healthy, aren't they?" He shook his head. "They're high in fat, 75% fat to be exact. But they lack fiber and protein, which means they don't keep you full. It's easy to overeat them without realizing it, and the excess calories add up fast. Most people don't realize they're consuming the equivalent of a fast food meal in just a few handfuls." Margaret felt the heat of embarrassment rise to her cheeks. She had been sabotaging her own health. The truth was, she hadn't been gaining weight because of aging or metabolism. She had been eating hundreds of extra calories a day without even realizing it. And it wasn't just about the number on the scale. Weight gain in older adults increases the risk of heart disease, joint pain, and even cognitive decline. She had been making progress, but this was setting her back. But the worst mistake, the most dangerous of them all, was something she had never seen coming. It had seemed so harmless, so small. Flavored nuts. She had always avoided candy, never touched soda, rarely indulged in desserts. But honey-roasted almonds? Barbecue cashews? A little sweetness, a little salt, it felt innocent, like a better alternative to unhealthy snacks. But then her blood pressure spiked. She had no idea why. She was eating right, exercising, doing everything she was supposed to do. But when she went back to the doctor, he asked her another simple question. "Have you been eating flavored nuts?" She nodded. "Yes, but just a handful here and there." He sighed, shaking his head. "Margaret, those healthy snacks? They're packed with hidden sugars and sodium. Some have more sugar than a candy bar. And the excess sodium? It raises blood pressure, puts stress on your heart, and increases the risk of stroke. It's like eating processed junk food just disguised as something healthy." Margaret felt a chill run through her. The nuts she had trusted, the ones she thought were protecting her, had actually been working against her. Cashews, macadamias, flavored nuts. 3 small mistakes, 3 choices she had made every single day, and they could have cost her everything. She thought about her granddaughter, Emily, about the day she forgot her name, about how hard she had fought to get her memory back, about the walnuts, the pistachios, the almonds, the small changes that had given her back her life. And now this. She had almost undone everything. She had been feeding her body the very things that were harming it. Margaret had been lucky. She had caught it in time. But how many others wouldn't? She thought of her friends, her neighbors, people just like her who believed they were making smart choices without knowing the hidden dangers lurking in their food. She thought about the millions of seniors unknowingly eating foods that were silently stealing their health, their energy, their future. And then she made a decision. She wasn't going to let you make the same mistakes, because every bite you take is either protecting your future or stealing it away. Margaret had been given a second chance. But what about you? Will you keep eating the wrong things, hoping for the best? Or will you make the change before it's too late? The choice is yours. Margaret's story is not just hers, it belongs to all of us. It's the story of aging, of time slipping through our fingers, of realizing that our bodies and minds need more care than we ever thought. But it's also a story of hope, of resilience, of the simple, powerful choices that can change the course of our lives. Because the truth is, aging is inevitable, but decline is not. You don't have to wake up one day and wonder where your memories have gone. You don't have to live in fear of a fall, a heart attack, a life cut short by choices you didn't even realize you were making. Now you do realize. 3 small but powerful allies: walnuts, almonds, and pistachios. These aren't just snacks. They are fuel for your brain, protection for your heart, strength for your bones. They are the difference between a sharp mind and confusion, an active body and frailty, independence and decline. But then, there are the silent enemies: cashews, macadamia nuts, flavored and candied varieties. They pretend to be healthy, but they slowly damage your kidneys, flood your body with harmful fats, and drown your heart in sugar and salt. Margaret learned this lesson just in time. Will you? Tonight, before you go to bed, do one thing. Put a handful of walnuts in your kitchen. Tomorrow morning, eat them first thing. One small habit, a handful a day, could be the difference between holding on to your memories or watching them fade. And before you go, let's talk. Have you ever noticed how certain foods affect your memory? Have you felt the difference in your focus, your energy, your sharpness? Drop a comment below. I want to hear your story. And if this message resonated with you, don't let it end here. Share it with someone who needs to hear this before it's too late. Like this video, subscribe to Elderly Wisdom Story, and together, let's help more people age with strength, dignity, and clarity.